We live in 10. Live in 4, 3, 2, 1. We're live.
Bishop, hello, everyone. Bishop, our bishop is muted today. So let me go ahead and say hello, everyone. Hello to each and every last one of you all. Let me officially welcome you all to Be Your Own Bank, hidden in plain sight. Hello to each and every last one of you all. My name is Tasha M. Dyer, the Trade Whisperer, and I just want to say hello to Rejoice 904, our listening audience. I want to say hello wherever you're listening to, whether it's via YouTube, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on LinkedIn, no matter where you're listening in from. I even think we're on Twitter too now. So let me say hello to all of you all. Want to make sure we say hello because today is going to be epic. Today is going to be powerful. So hello. Now, if you are listening to us because of what we're doing and talking about, I want to make sure that you share. If you're on social media, right, this is Be Your Own Bank. We're financially educating, impacting, and empowering 2 million families worldwide. So make sure you share. We're going to see if Bishop is with us. Right, as you all know, you always hear from him first as he welcomes and opens his call, but that's okay because we already know what's going on and what's happening. So, but if not, then I'm gonna just go ahead and call on Dr. Bikewood, right, our finance doctor. Dr. B.
Yes, Miss Dyer. Yes, our esteemed radio colleagues, and yes to our radio listening audience. We are so grateful to have the opportunity to greet you again. And we look forward to a wonderful conversation.
All right. So there we go. I think we got Bishop back here today. So, today we're really talking about how debt impacts your money. And so as we get prepared and as we get set up, we just want to make sure that we share this information with you. We want to make sure that you're tuned in, you're listening. And before I start talking and we start talking about this topic and we start talking about what's going on, Bishop, are you back with us? Okay, well, I know he's on the line. I know he might be having some connection issues, but there we go.
Yeah, I'm here.
There we go.
My computer decided it wanted to reconfigure itself right when we said we had a minute out. So I'm here on my phone. But I'm happy to be here today. I'm excited for those who decided to be a part of our show today. We're excited about what's going on in the economic world. It's everything is moving real fast. Things are happening, and folk are making money. And we don't want you to miss out on these opportunities that are presenting themselves, even as we speak this very moment. And we're excited because we know that we can give you some information that could change your life, change your perspective, change your financial situation. Today we have with us Tasha M. Dyer, who is the one that God chose out of all the people in the world, chose to give her a vision, to give her a strategy to the people, the everyday people who would like to change their financial destiny. He entrusted in her, and she has been a very good steward of that knowledge. She shares it at least 40 times a month, and we're excited about that. And also, we have with us Dr. Craig Bykewood, who's with us, and he is the anchor, that one that keeps us anchored in solid information. He has a PhD from the University of Florida in economics, and we're just excited to be a partner with him. And also, do we have our visionary with us today? I didn't see his picture on there.
I know he'll be on here shortly. I think you and him having the same type of problems with technology.
Oh, okay. Well, Ms. Dyer, can you say hello to the people?
Well, I said hello, Bishop. We open the line. I say hello again. Hello,
okay.
people. No,
let Dr. Bykewood. Dr. Bykewood, are you there?
I am absolutely here. Just glad that you got all that technical stuff handled so that we can be about our business and talk about this important topic.
Well, that's exciting to have you with us today. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. Today, we want to talk about Romans chapter 13, and a passage that is a passage that's often ignored in our society, because our society is a society that's built on a lot of credit. It because of credit, we function and we move and we own stuff we would not normally own if we had to pay cash for it. And this Darrell, you have that passage for us today.
I absolutely do. So you have Romans 13:8. It says, do not owe anyone anything, but love each other. Whoever loves his neighbor has done what the law says to do.
Oh, yeah. And so now Paul talks about how we ought to handle ourselves as it relates to the government and civil society. And he also tells us that police and folk like that are ministers of God. They're there to maintain order. And as a part of order, if we owe somebody something, we ought to pay them. We ought to pay them. And many times, folk don't feel that way. And I'm a little confused. I'm sure you heard some of it. I'm a little confused when I hear that the Senate, U.S. senators don't want to pay their debt. You know, they think it's an issue, a political issue with them and our president, but nobody's mentioned the fact of the money that they borrowed, whose money that was, and how them not paying that debt that they owe, how it's going to impact the people's money that you've already spent. And so often people with bad credit have that mindset that they don't recognize they have spent somebody's money, and that individual has made an investment and they're looking to get that money back. Good God Almighty, I want my money back. You know, in my neighborhood, you get somebody's money, you don't pay them, they come looking for you. They'll send cousin.
You took it back.
I'm trying to tell you now. And so that's not a plaything, the money. And you know, I was thinking about it. Our retirement money is a money that we've loaned out to somebody. And if we don't get our money, something we mighty upset when we look in our account and the money that's supposed to hit a certain date, it didn't hit. Then we want to know what's wrong with somebody and why it won't happen. And we don't take very many excuses when the numbers don't match up the way they should. And so, you know, our military folk, they're anticipating because their money hitting the bank a certain time. And if it doesn't, they want to know what's going on. PTSD will come out and they will be out there doing something to somebody. And so somebody needs to make sure that when we borrow money, that we pay it back. Now, the question of the day is unpaid debt. How does that impact our money? Unpaid debt. How does that impact our financial future? How does it impact our investment? How does it impact the amount of money that we will spend? How much more money we will have to spend for commodities and products that we buy? How does that impact us? I heard somebody say that, Ms. Dyer, you want to talk?
You broke up just a little bit at the end, but how does that impact our money? I mean, okay, so just you know, from my perspective and just for complete understanding, you know, one thing I don't do is I don't get concerned about the government, right? You know, I really am not. We had the same conversation every year. We had the same conversation, and it's always fun to who is the political party in charge. But the reality is if you go ahead and you pull up the debt clock, you pull up a debt, we're born in the debt. The actual taxpayer, debt per taxpayer is $228,000. Might as well say $229,000 debt per taxpayer. Depending on where you live, you can buy a house with that. So that's the debt. As a matter of fact, financial institutions, our government, all of them, when we're born, they're using our information. They are. So perfect example, right? We're talking about being your own bank. We're talking about banks using your money, right? We're talking about banks utilizing you and your money in order to facilitate what they're looking for, right? That's what we're talking about. So I had a situation, right, where I ultimately ended up, you know, leaving a bank, right? Leaving this financial institution. excuse me, and I ended up leaving this financial institution. Now, I had been with that financial institution for 15 to 20 years. When I left them, they sent me a check for $5,000 when I left. And that was money that I had no idea I was going to receive. It was not in any account that I could see. And then ultimately, you know, what the letter that came with the check stated that was mine because of investments and things that they were doing on my on the bank's behalf, on my behalf, right? Hold on, Bishop, I'm gonna mute you while you switch your mics. So, but they were taking that money and they were using that money on my behalf, like on behalf of the bank, but I didn't know about it. So they tried to spin it that they were using it on my behalf. That's what they tried to spin it as. And so I don't get caught up in trying to figure out what they're doing or how they're doing it. What we have to do is understand that we have the power to shift those things in our own personal life. Because if the bank can have and do trading and investments on my particular behalf to where they felt they owed me $5,000 when I moved from this location, when I moved from this bank, then why is it? And even when I was working in the military, right? Even my first position, my first job in the military, we literally handled the military's money. I did debt collection for the Army. All right. So when you understand that we did really foreign exchange market, balanced out different things by the end of the day. So when you understand that, you know, when you understand that we should not be in a position, we got to control our own to where we're in control of the narrative and we control all the outcomes and we control what's happening in our own life. That's how I see it, you know, where if we focus on our economy, our personal economy, what just opened up a new fiscal year. That's why it's a debt conversation. And do you know what the government does at the end of a fiscal year? If I know what we did in our units, I know what we did on our personal basis, I know what we did in our own offices, I can't even imagine what goes on at the White House, right? I can't even imagine what goes on there because I know it was all about trying to balance out toward the end of the year, making sure we spent all the money so we can get enough money next year because that's how funds were reallocated. It was so many checks and balances that were trying to happen, but we always were in debt. We always were in debt. And so let's get focused on our own personal economy. We're talking about a new fiscal year. Let's create our own fiscal economy and let's get focused on that.
You know, one of the things that I find very interesting about that is that it's very cultural. So to set this up, let me give you a brief example. I was listening to a sermon this week, and although the content was good, the minister kept saying that God was favoring America. And I know that the Bible says God is no respecter of persons. So I believe strongly that God loves all people the same, regardless of what country they live in. Well, I said all that to say this. I used to teach a class in Panama, Central America. And when I would go from hotel to facility or different places throughout the country, you would see all of these unfinished houses. So of course I would ask, and the driver or the tour guide would always say that in this country, we don't believe in using debt to buy houses. So what'll happen is one family will begin to build a house and then they'll pass it on to the next family. Then they'll pass it on to the next family until eventually it gets built. So I'm only bringing this up to think about the fact that debt is looked at different ways depending on what nation you're in. Now, here's the part that I find really fascinating about this. Some of those same nations that we consider to be undeveloped nations or underdeveloped nations because they don't use debt, now some of those same countries, Brazil and El Salvador, they're now utilizing cryptocurrency as their main currency. So it's just interesting to me that as we have this conversation about debt, that we recognize some of the cultural and national differences.
Exactly. And here's my question, because Ms. Dyer says when people watch the news, we get all emotionally stirred up. And she's right. I got all emotionally stirred up when I heard one of the broadcasters say that if the national debt is not paid, it will impact our military, it will impact our entire our insurance situation. Medicare, Medicaid will not be paid. It's going to impact our hospitals. It's going to impact our economy in a tremendous way. And so my thinking was, wow, that's the government's debt. And what about all those people who won't get paid and their debt is going to impact somebody's debt. It's going to impact somebody's interest rate. It's going to impact supply and demand because unfortunately in America, we are all connected in some way, either in the utilization of goods and services. And so, we all in some way, all of us will be impacted. If it's nothing but the price of fuel, we're going to be impacted. And so I'm just wondering, I heard you, Ms. Dyer, talk about focus on your own little island of economy and not worry about what's going on with other folk. But I think in America, that's kind of hard to do because we're all connected.
Well, see, we got it backwards. First, let me ask you this question. Why are they trying to stir us up emotionally? When has the debt ever been paid? When has the national debt ever been paid? Why is it that we had the same conversation every year and nothing changes? Why is it no matter who the administration is, it's always somebody else's fault? Why is it I can pull up the US debt clock and that thing is continuously moving and rising, and it's always been like that? So what's going to change? They're going to print some more money. What are they going to do? They're going to make the government run, and they're still going to collect their checks and do what they have to do. So the reality is we got it backwards. We keep looking at the government for answers. We keep looking to the government to fund things. We keep looking to the government to make things shift and to make things happen. When the reality is I don't care who's in, it's usdebtclock.org. Go pull it up, look it up. So no matter who's in office, this thing is still moving. I'm looking at it right now. It doesn't stop moving. It just moves and moves and moves because money is always moving, but yet it's always going to be spun to make somebody look bad, to make a Republican look bad, to make a Democrat look bad, to make, somebody else. It's always somebody else's fault. But the reality is if I shift the economy of my house to where I'm not relying on the government, then I'm going to change a legacy. And if I have impact in my household, then I can impact my neighborhood. I can impact my community because that's where change starts. Change does not start with the government. Change does not start because, for one, if you want to start with the government, you got to start at election time. You got to start at holding people accountable. We got to start at not voting for something instead of against something. That's where the change is going to start. But it's really going to start in my own personal household when I began to educate myself on what's transpiring and what's happening. And then that is how we make change in our communities. I mean, think about it. Look at what transpired with Facebook yesterday. Facebook went down. It was Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, right? We could not connect on social media and the world was lost. So look at how much influence that social media or our personal opinions and thoughts and emotions have, because we were all looking for that connection. So if I make a change in my house, I'm not only concerned about my island. If I was only concerned about my island, we wouldn't have a worldwide movement. I wouldn't get up at 5 a.m. and 9 a.m. to do a profit call, to walk you through how to do an analysis on the charts. We would not be having a call tonight at 9 p.m. If I was only concerned about my personal island, then no, we would not be doing these things to empower people worldwide. That would not be happening. But my focus is on economically empowering and not fearing individuals, not giving them a solution, telling them what's going to happen, but not giving them a way out. Because the reality is we always got debt. The government always has debt. The reality is Medicare is always going away. The reality is people still don't have no money. The reality is you still got to go through this process to apply for government aid. The reality is the government, they still don't keep their promises. That's the reality. So at what point are we going to stop being so stressed about what they're doing and turn this around for ourselves?
So really want to add on to what Ms. Dyer is saying. First of all, to our listening audience, there may be government officials the opinions of the trade whisperer do not necessarily reflect. I'm just kidding.
Oh,
I'm just kidding.
Amen,
So-
amen, amen.
So here's what I'd like for our listening audience to do right now. I want you to analyze not just what Ms. Dyer said, but I want you to analyze the intensity. I want you to analyze the energy. I want you to analyze the way in which she expressed herself. Because for years, we've heard this dynamic where the government operates in a certain way. And then we as people respond or reply or discuss, you know, that barbershop conversation you're always hearing, that family reunion conversation we're hearing. But here's the beauty of this conversation right now, at this moment. This is the first time I've ever been a part of a conversation like this, where we accurately describe some of the inefficiencies of the government system. But yet, we have a vehicle that we can use to put ourselves in a position of being unbothered economically. That's huge. I've said this for years. Before the Be Your Own Bank movement, the only thing I could ever provide anyone was information. Now I can give them a vehicle. So I agree with you, Bishop Robertson. It does affect everyone. It is an impact. But I also agree with you, Ms. Dyer, that the only solution is for us to take care of our own island, to create our own economy. So as we watch these things unfold, we know two things. A, they are of impact on people. But B, what if we could use our resources to help those that the government cannot? That's a wonderful situation to be in.
yes, Dr. B. Yes, that's what I'm saying. So yes.
I don't think that's what he said. He said what you said. I don't know.
You gotta take care of your island. I'm not concerned. All right. The only time that we did not, I'm gonna tell you, being a soldier, being in the military, I'm gonna tell you this. Even during deployments, we had something called G9 funds. I think it was G9. They were unlimited. They always find some money. They lying to everybody to scare people. When it came to deployment, military operations, the money was there. Now, when we were at peace, then no, the money was not there. We had to make do, or we had to budget and things like that. So money is there. It's not going to impact our military. Then the second thing is, like I said, we had this conversation every year. You get furloughed. Well, man, what am I going to do? No, you coming to work. You're a soldier 24/7. I don't know, right? But one thing we know is soldiers got to have bees and bullets, right? They got to have food, and they got to have money, and they got to have bees and bullets. That's it. You know, so you got to show up. You got to show up, and you're going to do your job, and you're going to protect America because you swore, you raised your right hand. So the military is not going to be impacted. They're inciting fear. But the only time I've ever seen a check, right, our pay come through that did not have actual pay on it because of the same conversation was when I was in command out here in Jacksonville, when I first got to Jacksonville, and we were under the Obama administration. That is the only time I saw a check that soldiers receive now that's the stub, the check stub that soldiers receive. But guess what? They still got paid. They figured it out. They made it happen because nobody wants to say I didn't pay a soldier. Nobody wants to be responsible for that. So it's all about inciting fear. And my point is, we don't need to be so focused. That's why I tell you don't watch the news. We don't need to be so focused on the fear incitement. We don't need to be so focused on that, because one thing the government is not giving you is a solution. And that's exactly what Dr. Byfull was just spelling out. That are these issues important? Absolutely. But the government and the fear that they incite, or the news reporter, because remember, they're there to report based on their viewpoint, their opinion. They no longer report facts. So what happens is that fear is incited. And when that fear is incited, but guess what? They don't offer you a solution. The government's not offering you a solution. No one is offering you a solution. So what we're saying is, if you learn how to take care of you learn how to create for yourself, we're offering you a solution. And so when I said I'm not only concerned, but I have to start with me, because that's where change starts. Change is internal. It is an inside out job. So if I start with me from the inside, and I start with my shift and my change, then what happens is that's what's going to penetrate. That's what's going to be my conversation. Because I started with me, When I listen to my 20-year-old, 21-year-old son, his conversation is different. His connections is different. His network is different, right? Those things are different because he's been exposed to information. His commentary about our government, about programs, about different things, they're different because he's educated, because he's empowered, because he's relying on himself, because he is economically empowered. That's what makes it different. So no, I'm not going to allow the media, and I'm not going to allow our government's debt to cause fear to stop me from creating my own economic empowerment and allow me to be in debt. That's what I'm saying.
Well, okay, Mr. Dyer, I'm not gonna say you won that debate, but you came pretty close to making a point. But let me say this then.
Yes, the government shut down. Yes, that's exactly the one. Somebody just
Well,
asked it. So yeah.
I don't want to talk about the government as much as you made a statement about individuals, and because of what's been going on lately, more people are losing their homes right now as a result. Even though they supposedly got money from the government to pay their bills, they didn't pay their bills, and they're losing their homes all over Jacksonville. I'm hearing in many of the more upscale neighborhoods, like the one you live in, are living losing their homes and did not pay their bills, and there will be more people in America over the next few months who have bad credit than good credit. Now, how would that impact the market?
Well, for example, anybody listening who cashed out on Facebook yesterday and today? I saw 777 in the chat. Guess what? Facebook dropped. It dropped yesterday. It dropped. But guess what? When you're empowered and you have a skill set, you understand how to take advantage of the market regardless of the direction it's going. So no matter what direction, that's what the difference of being an educated trader is. I don't care if it's going to rise. I don't care if it's going to fall. We're going to profit regardless. And when you're thinking about people losing, right, this is where that change comes in. This is where that shift happens. Stop waiting till tomorrow to make a decision. Stop waiting until tomorrow. Say, oh, I'm going to do this the next day. I'm going to do this when the time gets right. See, a pandemic was on nobody's calendar. And what happened is the government came in and said, well, I can't evict you right now. The government came in and said, you can't take their house. Give them a chance to get back on their feet. Well, guess what? That doesn't mean you didn't owe the money. That didn't mean, so when people got the stimulus checks, I saw people at malls, shopping, new cars, all of those things, as opposed to paying the bills that was accumulating. And so when those protections went away, now they're losing their homes. Now they're being evicted. Now those things are transpiring. So everything is not the government's fault. Sometimes we got to take personal responsibility for our own actions or lack thereof. But it also, for those of us who are economically unbothered and economically empowered, COVID did not affect us. It impacted us because it impacted the entire world. But we did not miss a beat because we made a decision and did not put that decision off until the next day. See, we got to stop. Oh, I'll wait. This will be a better time. This will be a better week. I'll do this next week. I'll do this tomorrow. Well, what is tomorrow? What's going to happen? Remember, every day you're trading your life for something. We all have an expiration date. Every day we're trading our life for something. And so you got to see the big picture and understand the legacy you want to live, and ask yourself every day, what are you willing to trade your life for? What legacy are you going to leave? Because you're going to leave a legacy, but what is it going to be? So are you going to empower? Are you going to help people remove and get out of debt? What exactly are you going to do? So let's stop procrastinating, stop putting it off, stop looking at the government, stop all of those things, and empower ourselves and make a decision that we are going to walk in excellence and we're going to change, because nobody can do it for us. The government not going to keep a roof over my head. They're not going to do that. And I don't want them to. We got this. And we're going to empower other people to do the same.
Dr. Bywood, that's hard. She when you get one of her pet peeves area, you got to be ready. Even though you're trying to be the devil's advocate, you get really, it's a danger zone. And she really comes at it. You felt all that. You feel all of that, Dr. Byfoot. That was a lot of energy. Uh,
It,
uh,
it absolutely was, Bishop. This is one of those topics where, money is an energy and it's emotional. 72% of relationships end based on money issues. So it is something that needs to be discussed. It is something that represents things that we've been holding on to. It does represent beliefs that we have. And more importantly, it represents, Bishop, beliefs that we need to shift. I said this to someone this morning. The only way to get rid of an old belief is to replace it with a new one. So what if we could replace our beliefs with those things that are going to empower us and are going to empower others? Because here's one thing we know for sure. Ms. Dyer said it earlier. Sometimes when we vote against someone. And that against energy begins to reproduce itself in the way in which we operate as a society. Well, there's a book called Power versus Force that talks about the fact that there's a certain amount of energy that can be measured. And when you show love, which is a high vibration energy, it reverberates to the fact where it can affect 70,000 people. Similar to the butterfly effect, which is something people are talking about a lot. One butterfly flutters its wings at a certain point, it can impact things miles away. So the solution to this is simple. If one person decides that they want to look at this in a positive, encouraging, pro-economic, pro-wealth, pro-abundance way, and then other people begin to pick up on that, then eventually society begins to change. But if we all walk around mad and angry about the way things are being done, then we put ourselves in a position where it continues. One thing that Ms. Dyer said, which is very accurate, we do have this conversation every year. So when we have it, we got to find a way to do it in a productive way so that we can bring out some positive change.
Absolutely, and certainly it's got to be a positive change, especially when we break it down to individual households. We certainly want to be able to take advantage of this conversation. We can anticipate, we can prepare for this time of year. We can prepare to make money this time of year. As Ms. Dyer said, if we get on the right side of the movement, because the news will bring about a shift in the momentum in the movement. And if you're a part of the movement, then you can get on the right side of the movement and make money. The same happens in Britain with Brexit. When that conversation comes up, then there's a lot of movement in the market, and they have a similar conversation in Europe a couple of times a year. And so we're excited about Miss. Why are you looking at me outside eye, Miss Dyer? Yeah.
I got two computers going on, monitoring chats and everything else. You feeling guilty, Bishop? You feeling guilty?
No, I'm trying to host the show and stimulate some conversation. That's all I'm doing. I'm still on your side. I had to shift it. Well, where's Mr. Rogers? So Mr. Rogers is the only one can hold you in a similar sense of controlling, but you're not gonna allow anybody to control your thoughts and your emotions, and I appreciate that about you. But yeah, and so this is not just an American conversation, but it happens in other countries, does it not?
Absolutely. The markets is worldwide. Kind of going to the chat, I do want to acknowledge because we have quite a bit of listeners that are actually chiming in. And so I thank you all for your commentary and for your comments. Thank you for answering the question and clarifying your point. I take responsibility for my own accountability. As children of the Most High, we're not supposed to walk in fear. We have to use wisdom and prepare for the what ifs. And I'm gonna just say hello to all of you all that's like straight facts, Miss Dyer. I love you guys. So, but now you roll your eyes that time. I saw you. I saw you. So
Yes, well, I mean, we appreciate all the comments coming from all over the world, all over the country, and we know that we have business partners all over the world, and we're just excited about them sharing their thoughts. And we want to hear from people. We want to hear their thoughts and ideas about what's going on and the opportunities that they've taken advantage of with this conversation going on in all throughout America about whether or not people are going to actually, military is actually going to get paid, whether or not the people on Social Security will actually be paid, whether or not Medicare, Medicaid would be able to get your medicine, whatnot. This is frightening information. The idea, the thought that, huh?
Still off of that vaccination.
Yeah, and
No, no,
that's a whole nother conversation there.
no,
And
the point I'm making is it's about convenience and talking points. It's about stirring fear and creating an agenda that they want to create. That's what it's about. So I know we're supposed to be talking about the movement and not the government, but at the end of the day, I mean, I guess that's where the topic came from. But that's what it's about, because they didn't say if we don't pass the budget, you're not gonna get a COVID vaccination. They didn't say that. They didn't say that we're gonna pull back on the vaccinations because we don't have enough money. Why is it that we're not gonna pay the military? Why is it that we're not going to, the senior citizens? It's about what creates fear, because what they're pushing initiatives to get more people a third shot. So if we're trying to get a third shot, why is that not stopped? Why is that not a talking point? Why is that not an issue? It's about what's going to create the most fear and anxiety in someone. And that's why we have to be wiser and really monitor what we feed ourselves and what we allow inside of us. The same way they say you are what you eat, you are what you listen to, you are what you feed yourself. If we allow that fear, anxiety, and negativity and doubt and all that inside of us, that is literally what is going to be and what we're going to live on. And I can't do that. No, I
well,
can't.
I mean, it sounds like somebody's has put a little something on marijuana, because you keep bringing up anxiety,
Oh, no,
and,
I
and,
don't get high. I don't do that either.
well, I'm just saying now getting high is medication for anxiety. That's what people get prescriptions for these days. All over. I didn't say you did. I'm just saying people do all over. There are places all over the country in every city I've been in where people are medicating themselves for anxiety. And that's a new word for this generation. When I was coming up, when I was in my 20s, I never heard anything about anybody on anxiety.
That's
But
because
so
all this medication, but that's another topic. You
yeah,
think
somebody's pushing that.
got ADHD because they can't sit down and be still all day, but
Mm,
yet, that's not what they designed to do. They designed to be kids. So,
mm.
that's a whole nother topic. That's a side effect of that.
Dr. Bible, you still there?
Yes, I am, Bishop.
Yeah. You have any comments related to Miss Dyer's recent comments?
Well, I feel as though I think our radio audience can benefit by this piece of information, because there's been a little bit of lack of clarity on exactly what they're asking for. Does that change it? Nothing. No, but it does help us understand what's going on. So what they're asking is they're asking to raise the debt limit. So if you think about it, every single organization operates under policies. So in order to do certain things, in order to do A and B, you have to go by the rule book. And the rule book says that the overall spending or the overall amount that's borrowed has to stay under a particular threshold. Think of a credit limit on your credit card. You're not able to charge more than your credit limit. So what they're saying is, allow us to raise our credit limit. Allow us to raise the limit of our debt. That way we continue to function. And they've calculated out where by October 18th, they will have not be able to continue to spend if they don't raise the debt limit. I also think it's important to recognize this. This debt limit in the history of our nation has been raised 78 times. So this is part of the overall process. Do I agree that there's some fear being used to encourage us to support it? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, this is a policy action. In order for us to keep spending at the debt amount in which we're spending, we need you to help us to raise this number. And that's really what's going on.
Wow. So, Dr. Bible, let me ask you this question. At the bank, there is a collections department and there's a recovery department. What is the difference in the two?
So collection is what happens as a first pass. Maybe I really want to date a woman. Ooh, there it is again. And so I'm going to shoot my shot.
I was gonna get you, Dr. B.
Something's happening in the atmosphere. That's the second week in a row. Uh, that topic is kind of, he kind of ran it by us. He don't want us to be
There we
shocked the
go.
next time
There
we
we
get
go.
together.
So that's like collection. I want to see if I can collect this woman's attention. But then once I get to the point where I'm in the relationship and things may need to be addressed, she may be upset by some of my actions. Now I need to go and make sure that I can salvage what has been lost. That's recovery. So the first round from a banking perspective is collection, and those further rounds are recovery. Good question with no personal ramifications for my life whatsoever.
Mm,
Absolutely. Now, here's
Bishop, I
what.
got a question.
Okay,
I
okay,
got a
okay. Go
question.
ahead. Go ahead.
My
Go
question
ahead.
is for everybody
Don't
listening.
ask her. Don't ask him how old she is and what color her hair is and all that stuff. Okay.
I'm gonna ask him that after before we log off. I want to know who she is. But
Uh,
my question is why we're so concerned about the government's debt, do we know our own? Do we know our own personal numbers? Do we know what's required to run our own personal household? Why are we complaining about the government raising a debt limit, but why are we always trying to raise our own debt limit? Because most people live on 125% of their income, which is above their debt limit. So at what point and when are we going to take control and take charge? This is what I mean about ourselves, because we need to make sure that we're in control of our personal debt limit. We understand our personal numbers, and we understand and get educated on our personal finances. And when that happens, and quit, oh, I can't count. Like I can't do math. I can't learn. What is that? I bet you know how much your check's supposed to be when you work X amount of hours times X amount of pay equals X amount of money coming into my house. So if you can do that, then you can learn a skill set. But it's all about, do you know your own personal debt? Do you know your own personal debt limit? Do you know your own personal, do you need to raise your debt limit? Because do we need to raise our income so we can keep spending at the rate that we are? So that's what we need to start. What is our debt limit? What is our income requirements? What is that? Where is that? That's what needs to happen. That's the conversation.
yeah. Well, exactly, and that's where I was headed with my next thought. Was that, when I asked Dr. Byfoot about recovery and collection, I had a member, she was in charge of the recovery department for one of the major banks. And I asked her about that. And she said, well, this is how it works. In recovery, the amounts of the loans are much lower. And when you get into the millions of dollars, many times you call a company or an individual that owes a lot of money, they will ask to borrow some more money to pay their current debt. And the bank usually loans give them a higher amount of money they can access so they can make payments on that current debt. And that sounds like what's happening with the United States of America. We need to be able to borrow money to pay on our current debt. Is that not it, Dr. Byfoot?
Let me just change the word current debt to current expenditures. Because
Okay,
if you're
good.
spending money and you do not have enough revenue coming in to cover it, then you have to operate at a debt,
Mm,
operate at a
yeah,
deficit.
deficit.
And you know what's really
Mm,
interesting? If you watched any of the proceedings last week, when they were talking to the Federal Reserve chairperson, they kept making a big deal about the fact that he is not allowed to discuss fiscal policy. Fiscal policy means money coming in, money going out, taxes and expenditures. So it's very interesting that you have this gentleman that's being responsible to make decisions to make our economy the best it can be, but he's not allowed to talk about the main value of where that money comes from, what you spend and where you get the money from, and that's it. That's the entire economic piece. That's the financial piece. So what I'm saying to you is simply that the debt is about our ability to be able to finance it. But the fiscal policy is about our ability to be able to spend more than we're making. That's really what's going on. And like Ms. Dyer said, many of us picked up on that same energy and we're doing the same thing. We are spending more than we're making.
Absolutely. And so uh, if we learn to be our own bank, then we can increase that amount that is actually coming into our coffers and not have been in a position where we have to spend more than we're making. What kind of mindset has to happen? Changing our mindset that have to happen for us to make that shift of being physically responsible for the increase in the amount of money that actually comes into our personal possession.
Well, the first thing we have to do is be intentional about that shift. We have to get intentional because, I mean, think about it. Here we are. The topic today is how debt impacts your money, right? How debt
Mhm.
impacts your money. But
Mhm.
we spent 45 minutes talking about the government. And that's very typical, right? That is very, very typical as opposed to our personal finances, our money, what's going on in our households, how we can make a change, what we can do, what we need to transpire, what actions we need to take. But we spent 45, well, let's just say 40 minutes because we had some technology issues up front. We spent 40 minutes talking about the government. And that's the nature of society is our focus is off. Our focus is on the wrong things. Our focus is not where it needs to be. And so we're going to make a change. It has to be intentional. And that's why when I talked about why we get up or why we do what we do, I'm so thankful for the evolution of this movement. I'm so thankful, because we got people on here right now from the UK. We got people on our call right now from around in different parts of the world. So we're having global impact and worldwide impact because we made a decision. We made a decision to economically empower. This is an economic empowerment movement. And because of that, we are intentional about shifting focus. This is why we do calls the way we do them. This is why we sit back to empower individuals the way that we do. This is why we're so intentional about ensuring that lives are changed because we want to make sure that our voices are heard and they have to be louder than the stuff that we were just talking about. Our voices has to be louder. Getting people to shift the mindset is going to take work. It takes action. It takes, they got to hear it more than one time to understand that there is so much more out there. And that is what we're here for. That's why we're here, to make sure that this information, this is that good news, to make sure, the scripture we're talking about says we're not even supposed to owe anybody anything, but we're living at 125%. So if that's it, let's apply that to our life. Let's apply that to us. Let's start with us. Change starts with us, not waiting on somebody else to do it.
Absolutely. And one of the things about it, I've heard you say several times that debt has always been around, and for our generation, yeah, that's the norm. Debt is a norm. It's abnormal not to have a credit card in your pocket. And you talk to people about cutting up credit cards and maybe keeping one, they look at you like you're crazy, because I don't know what might happen. In other words, for emergency, I'm depending on this credit card.
What's
What kind
crazy?
of what kind of position? What kind of position is that to be in when your emergency fund is your credit card for most people?
And that'll bring me to another point. But I'll say this. I took what is it? Financial Peace University. I took that course years ago. Probably almost 10 years now. And that like really shifted. And I'll tell you what, I just now recently got credit cards again. And I only got that to have them, like to, I don't care about that, oh, let's get these points, let's do this. Like, if I can't pay cash for it, I don't need it. If I can't buy it, I don't need it. And because it was so hard to cut that up, but it was so intentional. And it was so hard for me to get off of that stuff. But I'm like, and if I can't pay for it, then I know I got to do something else. If I can't afford it, then I was like, no, guess what? TMD, you something else you have to do. And so I put myself in a position to where I'm always in control. Nobody's ever calling me to be like, oh, well, you owe us this money or you owe us this. I made an intentional shift, right? is very, very intentional. And so that goes back to understanding even the laws of compounding. So we've been talking about compounding now since the beginning of this movement, right? We've been talking about compounding since, you know, we really began this movement, and understanding, you know, that we understand it because we compound out all the time. This is why we create debt. We're talking about swiping that credit card. We're talking about buying those houses, right? People will swipe a credit card for lunch. You know what I mean? But so you taking a $10 lunch and now it's a $30 lunch because you put it on a credit card. We compound out consistently. When you buy a house, when you buy a car, you know that's not that final price. But yet I think we're gonna get out of debt. What we're doing, why has that always been around? Because that's our society. Then we go fight, right? We go fight and have, you know, a linear income. We know that I'm gonna get paid the exact same thing on the 1st, the 15th, every other Friday, every Tuesday, whatever your pay date is, and you don't think twice about it. And when somebody talks to you about wealth and generational and legacy shift, when somebody speaks to you about that, it's foreign. When somebody speaks to you about that, you don't understand it. It doesn't seem real, but it seems real going out. And that's where our mindsets have to shift. Because if it can go out, why can't it come in? If we consistently put it out, this is why we get deeper and deeper, and wealth for our cultures is going away. Because at some point you have to make that shift. And when we make that shift, then that change happens and it comes back around. So compound in and not just out. Learn a skill set. I mean, seriously, put you and your family. We go to school to get degrees. I mean, one of my degrees is still in the thing they mailed it in. It's still in the envelope somewhere. Like I got 2 masters, and one is the one that they sent me, a master's in leadership, and that's still in the envelope that they mailed it in. I have never taken it out. I think I've opened it and looked at it and put it back in there. So just want to, we have stop, we got to stop just thinking that that's the way, that because it's not. We got to put ourselves in a position where our money works for us and not just other people.
Exactly.
So let me add to that. Yes. So I really want us, as a unit to think about this. Miss Dyer, this entire call has been expressing a great deal of emotion. It's based on things that we see, things that we experience. And I have an affinity for a single mom who was raised by a single mom who's doing everything in her power to make it work. But I do want to caution against this human nature. We humans are so quick to, based on a negative experience, take it to the other extreme. This person was mean to me, so I'm going to be with somebody who's overly nice. This person was too nice, so I'm going to be with somebody who's fiery. So I'm only saying that to say that it's our inclination to do that. But I just want us to think about the fact that this entire conversation, if I was dead, I might have an attitude because I've been on a radio show and they're bashing me. But I want you to think about this. In business, the word debt is synonymous for leverage. Leverage. Leverage is a concept of physics which allows us to be able to take the force of something and to have more power when we use the leverage to thrust it up. So that's exactly what leverage is. Debt gives you the opportunity to be able to have more power because you can do things quicker. You can do things in a larger scale. So what I think we have to do is understand that debt may have a role. For example, Ms. Dyer gave the example, which is more like reality than I would like to admit. We spend $10 on a credit card for lunch that ends up being a $30 meal. But what if we use that $10 for that lunch? And then we have the $10 sitting in a money market account. Or we take the $10 and we trade it for 30 days. And then we take that $60 that we made from the $10 and we use that to pay off the $10, and now we can have 5 more lunches. So there are ways for us to recognize that debt can be utilized in a positive way if we do what we're doing on this call. And that's having a mindset, understanding of how we can use it to our benefit.
I hear Ms. Dyer.
Want anything.
Ms. Dyer, let me ask you a question, Ms. Dyer, please. Can I ask you a question? I know you took that leadership class and you want to lead, but let me let me ask you this question.
No,
Okay.
that was natural. That was all natural.
I know. I know. And Louisiana natural. Uh, Now he used a term that we use uh, to increase our amount that we trade called leverage, and that's how. If I don't, you don't mind me advertising this, that's how we can put $500 in an account and say we're going to turn it into five figures in a few months. Uh, Leverage. Talk about leverage a little bit when it comes to trading.
Well,
Are we borrowing money? Are we using somebody else's money?
it gives you more flexibility, but at the end of the day, it does, but it's still based off of what I put in there. It's not
Mhm.
it's not like I go to my broker and say, hey, let me hold $2,000. That's not what happens. I'm not holding $2,000. If I only put $200 in my trade account, I can only leverage off of those $200. So I put skin in the game, and they're not going to allow me to go past them $200. It's just how much more of the market I can take advantage of, if I put it simply, right?
Mhm.
So that's just how much more of the market I can really take advantage of. But at the end of the day, if I put up $500, $2,000, that's what I have to utilize in the market. That the broker is not letting me hold something. I don't have an interest loan or anything like that with my broker.
Right, but it is
Dr.
that.
Blackwood, I heard you saying
A
something.
margin call is debt. So which brings me back to my point. We don't want to say that all debt is bad, but let's go back to the scripture. The scripture says, owe no man. So it's the concept of owing.
Mhm.
If I know I'm going to take that $10 and flip it to 6 lunches, I don't owe anything. I'm simply delaying my payment. If I'm using leverage and margin call trading, I'm simply maximizing the amount that I can make. So the concept of owing needs to shift as well. But that doesn't mean we have to go zero debt, because it's leverage. It's power.
It's taught me not to spend more than I physically have. So
And
if
if you
I
make
am not sure how I use debt to increase my wealth. So that's a comment in the chat.
that's the purpose. That's the purpose of being able to use somebody else's money is to. And then there's another concept that we're not going to get to today that's in the Bible, and that's the concept of using stuff before you pay for it. That's an Old Testament concept that we won't be able to talk about today because we got a few minutes left, and we're going to allow Ms. Dyer to go ahead and let people know how they can contact us, how they can be a part of this movement, be your own bank, how we can use leverage to make money and to cash out on a daily basis. Ms. Dyer.
So before I close out, I would just like our listening audience to know that my energy, how I actually feel, and what is coming across is because I love you and because I care. That's what it's all about. It's really just about us making sure and ensuring that you're empowered. It's really about a shift and a change. That's where my energy comes from, because we put so much energy into things that don't change our world. We put so much energy into things that are not going to help us. We put so much energy. So my energy, my passion is to make sure that you're shifted, to make sure that you're changed, to make sure that you have a deeper understanding and that there is more out there, and to make sure that we remove these financial blinders. That's what my energy is. That's what you all feel from me today. So if you really want to understand this movement, you want to understand how you can become economically empowered, you really want to understand what's out there, you want to understand your fiscal empowerment and how we're going to take control and how we're going to keep spreading this news, this good news, keep spreading this word, this empowerment, because I guarantee you we'll stop having these conversations when we start having more of empowerment conversations. Those are the less than, the debt and all of that, those conversations will stop when we start having more empowerment conversations. So how do you find out? Join us on YouTube tonight, right? Join us on YouTube. Be your own bank. Go subscribe. At 9 p.m., we have one of our phenomenal educators, right? I'm telling you, you are going to be amazed. She is phenomenal. And we have a phenomenal educator in the likes of a Miss Tanya Anderson. And she is going to break down exactly what this movement is. She's going to help you understand a little bit about taking advantage of what's in the market. And she's also going to help you understand what we say about compounding in. So you want to make sure 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you show up so you can show out, so you can understand how to put you and your family on the other side of money. And then simply text Be Your Own Bank. Text BYOB to 55469. To BYOB to 55469. And I'm also quite sure, because immediately following that call tonight, we have what's called a talk with the finance doctor. And of course, you just heard from Dr. Bythewood, and you'll hear from him this evening. So ladies and gentlemen, join us, subscribe, make sure you show up, make sure you contact us. Our website, beyourownbankmovement.com. Send us an email. We want to help you become empowered, and we are going to financially educate and impact 2 million families around the world. And this is why we wrote this book, Be Your Own Bank, Hidden in Plain Sight, because we're so serious and we're intentional about removing financial blinders and empowering people around the world. I love you all. We will see you tonight. And this is going to officially conclude this broadcast.